Okay. While everyone's sitting, getting themselves settled, can you turn your phones off, please, or onto silent? That would be helpful. Thank you. We'll make a start because we've just got a couple of things to do. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. I hope you've all enjoyed the sunshine today once the mist and fog lifted. I woke up to a cloud 2 days in a row, so that was a bit strange, but it was nice and warm on the beach later today. Do we have any first-time visitors tonight? Anybody? Are we? No. Okay. Just a bit of housekeeping. You all know where the toilets are, and emergency exits either side. Phones should be on silent. And I'd just firstly like to thank Ian for being a very good quiz master tonight and putting all that effort in. I think we could probably do some homework over the Christmas holidays, because I know that I recognise lots of photos, but details like names escape me, so maybe we should practice for next year. Just a couple of notes. The MDC closes tonight. The subject is success. I thought it was tonight. There was an error. Or was it last night? Oh, sorry. Details. It's the first, isn't it? Sorry, my mistake. Anyway, that's history, so I forget that. So let me see. Next week we'll be showing our PI salon. That's still open, I believe. Yeah. So if you want to enter any images, you can do on the website. So what else have we got? AGM on the 15th at 7 o'clock, followed by a talk by Jenny Reeve. Is it on her photo art or just on the art of? Yeah, she's quite creative, isn't she? I had a quick look. So that's on the 15th. John Hawkins has given me this form here. So if anybody would like to nominate themselves or anybody else for the committee, you can please add your name here. I think there's a couple of blanks. And then I'm certain someone will second it. So please see John Hawkins afterwards, because I'll give him this back in a minute. Ian mentioned last week that we've got our pinhole show and tell on Wednesday the 22nd. So if you haven't done any images with your pinhole lens cap, we've still got time to do that and put those. I had a go tonight, but they're pretty awful. Yeah, I know. I thought, I need to work on that. So I'll have to remind myself to have a go. We'll also be getting ready for our final night of the year on December the 2nd. There are many things that we need to do. We haven't had a meeting yet, but there will be plenty of jobs. If you feel you would like to contribute, put your hand up or see one of the committee afterwards, because we need lots of helpers to make it run smoothly on the night. What else have I got? I think that's about it, unless anybody's got anything else they'd like to add. As far as, no, we're just coming to the end of the year. So, you have. Well, I haven't done mine. I have no idea. I suppose you get a can opener, take it out. I think we have to scan it or something. I'm not quite sure. Penny's done it. Penny McCall managed it, but oh, yeah. No, my neighbour asked me if I'd put up a sort of a special camera looking at their house. So I said, well, it is a camera, but it's not what you think it is. It's a Coke can with a hole in it. And they were like, okay. But anyway, it's a bit dented, so I think something must have flown into it. So I don't know what mine will come out like. But all right, well, tonight we've got our competition, PI 10. Quiz night. I don't know, are we? We haven't had our meeting, so. A final night. Yeah, okay, so start thinking about something that you might like to bring in, donations that we can put together into 4 gift bags or 4 gift boxes that we will then raffle. So, bottle of wine, chocolates, Christmas cake, I don't know, more wine, more chocolate, I don't know, I'm quite happy with that. So anyway, Ian will talk about it next week. So we can go on to print 1, and I'll ask John Hawkins to please come up and talk about our judge tonight, which is Ian Walls.
Thanks, Diane. Yes, it's been a bit of a trial getting this one to go. Unfortunately, John was unable to make it tonight, and Ian had to do a bit of last-minute judging, so unfortunately we don't have critiques in the system, but Ian will talk to each of the images, and we will try and see if we can get some information into the system. So we all know Ian. Ian's a fellow of the Photographic Society of New Zealand, and he's done many of these competitions before, and I'm sure you'll enjoy his critiques. I'll pass it over.
Hello? There we go. We've got action. Okay. As John said, there's a bit of a quick turnaround on this. I only got the images on Monday. So I have not put any images, any image critiques in the website, and I'm not going to. But if for those of you who are keen on getting written things, so what I do, my process of doing this is to look at things, and can I get some light here so I can read my, my process is to kind of look at the images and write down dot points, and then essentially talk to those dot points. Transposing that into some cohesive written stuff is a bit more long-winded, but I'm happy to do that if anybody specifically wants me to for whatever reason that they have in their process or how that hangs. So just send me an email or ring me up. I'm happy to discuss further what I say tonight, and I'm happy to put it in writing if you need it in writing, but I'm not doing it for everybody just in case, so put it that way. A little bit about my judging style before I start. I've done all the PSNZ things, and I was part of the judge accreditation panel for quite a long time. However, I will not say, in my opinion, very much. What I tend to do is I look at an image and I reflect upon what I'm seeing, and then try and read into something, and I relate that back to you, what I've seen and what I've understood by it, and how I've interpreted it. And sometimes I'll look at something and I'm saying, I think you were trying to say this, and it wasn't 100% effective. Maybe you do this to make it work that way. I might be completely wrong in my interpretation of what you're trying to say. So just bear that in mind. That's my way of saying, in my opinion, right from the start, because that's exactly what it is, and you won't get it throughout the whole thing. The other, what was I going to say? Yeah, I'll talk about what things that I saw in there would help me to see it better, and relate to that. And the next thing is titles. Titles are not compulsory, and they're not sort of anything, but they sometimes are useful for a judge to interpret where you want to go. So I read into the image and look and see what I see about it, and then I'll read the title, and if that pushes me in a completely different direction, or it gives me an idea where you're going with it, it is useful. So I think it's a useful thing to title an image constructively in line with what vision you have about it. So bear that in mind. I've treated the titles like that. You can take that as it comes. The bottom line from that is cutesy titles don't help anybody, so the crux of that. And another couple of things I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to talk about sharpness on a couple of images, but I want to kind of outline beforehand that sharpness is a relative term, and too sharp and not sharp enough and is relative to what you're trying to achieve within the picture. So there will be some images here which I say could be sharper, and you might look at it and say, but it's sharper than that one just before that you said was good. So it's relative to the image itself. Sharpness is relative to the image itself. I'll leave it at that and talk about things as we go. The other thing that has happened, when I looked at the images on the computer there, I think I'm going to be in for another battle with the judging system. Every time I do this, I work out what order I think they're going to come up in, and then it's random number generation as it comes from the pictures, so I might have to shuffle around to find the one I'm looking for. But Let's go. Rotor swirl. I actually need a light so I can see this. Yeah, that's enough. Okay. Rotor swirl. Okay, I definitely get a sense of drama in this image. There's spray, there's water, there's action, and that's kind of clearly what you're getting at as the helicopter's coming in there. You've used a super shutter speed, which has achieved, if you look at the rotors of the helicopter, they're frozen, lock solid. And I believe that a little bit of motion in those rotors would have given us a more representative sense of what's actually happening. You'd actually sense that the helicopter's a bit flying a little bit. The major problem with it, and it comes up, you can see it here, but it's more evident on my calibrated screen, with there's quite a lot of colour noise in there, and that's because the ISO was a little bit high. You've gone for a really high ISO to get the high shutter speed, but I personally think that your shutter speed is a bit high for this situation, so technical issues let this one down. The fantail. Well done to even capture these little things flitting around. They're really fast moving, and it stopped briefly on the fence here. You've got an abstract background with really interesting colours, so the mixture of the greens and the reds and all sorts of things going on. Other stuff within the picture space that makes us a bit distracting is that big dark blob on the left-hand side of the frame. It sort of competes and sort of blocks up against him. I think you could comfortably crop quite a good chunk of that off, and the same applies to the fence that he's sitting on. I don't mind that solid base that he's sitting on, but it's still a big chunk within the frame, and it's just a big blob of black. So crop up a little bit from the bottom and in a bit from the right would improve things. The other thing you have missed his tail slightly, and overall, although it's in focus, the whole thing is just kind of too soft and slightly overexposed to sell the story well, so, crisper and sharper. This one is called Impressions of a Fashionista. Now, this is where the title kind of worked, because I looked at this and went, no idea what that is. I think it's a zoom blur thing done on a statue, and I think it's not a zoom blur done on a statue, and there must be a person in there somewhere. So it's great that you've stepped away from reality towards an abstract, but we've kind of created this impressionistic image. But with impressionistic stuff, you're supposed to give, I'm trying to get the sense or the impression of feeling of this person. And if they're a fashionista, I just didn't get the fashionista thing from anywhere other than the title. Instead, with this image, I kind of got dynamic, explosive movement, all those sort of energetic things, rather than something related to impressions of a fashionista. So I like what you're doing, but it needs to match up with the subject matter. And catching the light. I can see the concept. I can see that you've looked into the forest and you've seen little bits of dappled light. However, the overall picture is too complex for me to distill that down to your aim. I can see that that's what you've driven to. And we've also got this bright white area of snow in the bottom left-hand side of the frame, which again grabs the attention and grabs my eye. In order to pass off this little dappled light thing, I think there's a little bit of dappled light. I'm just going to point to it. In around here, there's dappled light on an interesting red frame. Get in really close and show that off with a more abstract design would work better. This I found a bit jumbly. And evening in the valley in Idaho and USA. Kind of what's the main thing is what I looked at. If you're looking at evening light in the valley, if you look over in the V of the trees and you look down the valley, there is lovely evening light. That's lovely receding ridge lines, and there's all sorts of things down in that bottom left-hand corner of the frame. But my eye is pulled to this bright white tree in the front on the right-hand side that has nothing to do with your subject. So the subject is only a smaller part of the frame here. I think this comes back to what's the main thing, and you're saying to me in your title that the evening in the valley is the main thing. The main thing in this frame is about a quarter of the picture space that you've presented to me. So hone in a little bit better on the main thing would be my recommendation. Might be in order now. Oh, no, we're not. Concentration. Concentration. We're all over the show. Concentration. I think this is a great concept. I love the little idea of the little sliver of light climbing up for emphasis, and it's also on a strong diagonal, so it works from a design point of view. However, colour comes into this as well, and at the moment, because those purple glasses are the only things that's in colour in here, that's what grabs my eye. So when I first look at this, it's a thin sliver of light emphasising someone's purple glasses. I really think for this to hang together and to work really well, there needs to be enough so that I can see the person's eye. So get them to turn towards you a little bit so the eye is in that sliver of light, and then that will become a stronger vision of this great concept. So keep going on the concept. I like it a lot. It's just the execution has missed the primary aimer for me in this point. What's this called? Nature versus city. Another great concept, and it's a concept of a yin-yang, one against the other thing that you're putting across here. So we have the Deloitte building in the background, which is geometric and strongly graphical, and we have this real natural kind of tree thing in the front, and they're about half and half. So the balance between the two of them is about half and half. The other thing that happens to me when I look at this for a while, once I go, okay, it's half and half, I then explore the edge of the flame and find some other things, like the Deloitte's at the top, which grabs me, and it's right on the edge of the frame, and there's a kind of a contrast over there, so you could really easily crop that out and the building becomes more abstract. And then I also look further through and I kind of see 77 James Street. So again, letters and writing and clear things like that grab and pull the eye. My suggestion for this would be attack it with the crop tool and make it a little bit more abstract. Chop the tree in half, and so we're talking sort of 2/3 building, 1/3 tree, and bring it up from the bottom to take out that 77 and bring it down from the top to take out Deloitte's, and then it'll become a more abstract expression of that tree versus building, because that's what you're trying to get across. The main thing is tree versus building. All the other ancillary stuff pulls me away from your main concept, which is a good one. Where's this? Somewhere in Croatia. Find my Croatia one. Here it is. This is crisp, vibrant, and punchy. I like that. The place is all about colour, the nice pastel-y colours of all the buildings, and I enjoy the kind of shapes and lines that you've made here. What am I saying here? Yeah, and that energy is mirrored in the kind of soft pastel colours. Where it kind of lets it down for me, there's strong vertical form that goes through the whole thing, and then we got these yachts on the left-hand side that don't really contribute. Maybe if they're there as a counterpoint, then they need to be bigger and a solid counterpoint. I personally think they could be gone easily and it would improve things. I would even kind of think about a vertical crop up here, and so it's now cropped in from both sides. Round that centre point of the spire that goes through the whole thing, it becomes more abstract but interesting and focuses on the reflections. Or if you really want the whole bit in the end point of the buildings, that's fine as well. But again, bring the crop down so we've got those yellow buoys which have a colour match that fit with the buildings, but those modern looking yachts don't add to the story. So the main thing and then the supporting elements to the main thing are what need to work together in this case, and here I think they fight against each other. So these are scored 2, by the way. Substation. I think there's an issue with the title here. When you've decided that you're going to present me an abstract distortion of reality, but then you wanted to tell me what the reality was. I don't care what the reality is when I'm looking at an abstract picture. So call it lines or call it something, call it nothing, call it untitled number one. That's fine, because then you're going to let me explore this form and find out what it is to be found. So we're talking about labels in reality versus ICM abstraction, I think, here. Yeah, that's the crux of what I'm saying. It needs to be simplified, is the other thing I'm going to say about this. There's lots of things there. We've got 3 vertical lines. We've got funny things going on in the corner. We've got a big swirl in the middle, and we've got the repeated form that the little lights have created. It's just created something that's a little bit too complex for me to be able to just relate to and twist in my head as something else. So my suggestion is to make it more abstract, forget about what it is, and simplify your construction of that abstract so that I can then rove and wander through it and turn it into something else in my head. This one is called Dancing in the Big Nor'wester. Yeah, I love, again, another wonderful abstraction of the dancers. The dancers are the key part of this picture. The fact that they're moving together, they're dancing together, that kind of works really well. But the rest of the design and the construction and the way the thing's put together is a little bit out of balance. It's not a horizon, but where that wave's come in has got me tipping over. Now, it sort of sits in the middle somewhere. If you wanted to make it more tipping over, that possibly would be better, and dancers do tip over and do sort of weird things. So take that a little bit further, and then we've got the sky above them right at the top. There's a big band, probably a quarter of the frame, which doesn't do anything to this. So bring it down. I would straighten it, but you could go the other way and make it a serious Dutch angle out of the way, but do something with that horizon line, or the horizontal line, which sits somewhere nearly horizontal but not quite, and that's what makes the balance feel out for me. So I really like where you're going with this. I like the starting point, which is the dancers design things to tidy it up and make it more, make it easier to look for and easier to engage with. Would step this up to the next level. Fractured reflections. I love the bold colours here, the structural form, and it's really pulled together by this compelling gaze of this subject in here is the kind of key to it. We are drawn into, that's in a sort of a predominant, almost a third position. It's not central, it's off to one side. It's compelling, and it does draw us in. And I'm assuming that it's actually a vertical form that's been rotated. I don't know that, but it kind of feels like it was a vertical series of windows that's got a reflection in it, and you've rotated it already to made it more abstract. But the rest of the frame has a really strong visual complexity, which makes it hard for me to distill. Again, I'm going to suggest a serious attack with the crop tool, and I'm going to suggest you crop most of these twirls off. These twirls here kind of reflect the eye and pull me away. So bring the crop down here and break this twirl up a bit and get rid of that one. And then over here, get rid of those eyes as well. Another crop about here. So we've got either a square or a portrait version. And then I think you're going to have an abstract that'll sing. And because you will be drawn to the face there, and that will be kind of a third at least of the picture space, so you're left with a main thing and the rest of it reflects around it. For me at the moment, the rest of it pulls me away. The old wool shed. It's an awesome image from a technical point of view. I looked at it, sitting on my 4K monitor, sort of 6 inches away from my face, and it's got wonderful detail all the way into it, and it's really well put together technically. From a compositional point of view, we've got this sort of leading line of a space of a track that you kind of walk down, and you get through to the wool shed. But I end up with looking at this going, well, yes, it's a wool shed in an interesting place, but what's its story? Why is it there? Tell me something else about it. And there's a couple of elements within there that kind of tell me something else. And the first one I don't think you're intended in is those people here. And again, as soon as you spot that person, because it's a person, your eye just keeps going to the person. So the person's overpowering. So in this case, clone tool would get kind of rid of them. But there's also a sign down there that says danger. I think that danger bit is where the story is with this wool shed. So I would suggest to achieve this picture and make it kind of more than just what's that doing there, why is it there? Go down and photograph it from that angle, again up with that background there, but make a big thing of that danger thing, because that's the key to that place, is it is dangerous. So that's its story. Let it tell its story. Don't try to make something else of it, make it look kind of nice in the landscape, because it's not, it's dangerous. Fog drifting, where's that? Oh, there's some more over here. There's lots of awesome layers within this image. It's looking brighter on the screen, considerably brighter on the screen than it does on a calibrated monitor. So I think that's just a function of the projection, the way this kind of works here. Effectively, a lot of the things that just hint through the fog are showing through clearly, like there's lines of the bush in there that I really couldn't see there. But on my monitor at frame, when it's a bit darker, I get pulled, because this is obscured by the fog, which is what your picture's about. This whole band from about here down, which is vibrant and sharp and crisp and I can see, pulls my eye away from the element that you're trying to tell me about, which is the fog. So, and when I get pulled down there, there's a kind of waterline with a bunch of interesting things, but no specific place for my eye to land on, so I kind of rove around the bottom and miss the top bit. My suggestion with this frame to make me look in the right place is to crop 2/3 of that bottom reflection off and just make the reflection at the bottom a little sliver or a base of the frame, so that I don't spend my time looking at it. I go, yes, that's where it is, I recognise it, but you really want me to look at the fog. And then when I start looking at the fog, I start noticing the shapes that are a bit more obvious here, and it becomes about the what did you call it? Something about the fog. Something about the fog. Fog drifting. It comes about fog drifting. So whereas at the moment, when I looked at this, when the fog was there, it was primarily about the water. Leaston architecture. Somewhere around here is that. Here it is. It's kind of an interesting non-literal form. I like the strong form that you're looking at. I've looked at it upside down and around the wrong way. I think it's steps, but it doesn't matter what it is, because it draws me in because of its crispness and sharpness. But there's a crisp architectural feel to it, at the same time as there's some decay. You know, there's areas, there's cracks where they shouldn't be. There's mortar that's falling out. There's a big chip off one corner of one part of the whole thing. And at various places, that shadow does its kind of flip around thing. Sometimes you look like you're looking in. Sometimes you look like you're looking out. Those things kind of all add up, but it's dominated for me by the black and the black shadows. Even with this really bright projection from the projector here, those are still dark. When you look at them on a calibrated thing, it's black, it's black, it's black. And it's like a black hole, a visual black hole. It drew me in there and there was nothing to find. I didn't mind that, but because it was about 50-50 in visual weight with the bottom half of it, it was like a big magnet and took me away from appreciating the overall form. So make it a bit smaller, make it a bit more concentrated detail, and concentrate on getting that visual balance working well. Always all wanting to be first. Where is that? They're all over the place. I hate this system. It's a big blob of bikers. And they're all coming around the corner and they're all together, so they do have a sort of a visual cohesiveness in that they sit together. So that works. The focus is actually on the middle guy. When you look and see what is the most focus, and you can't help with doing that when you're looking at a mass image like that, there is an area that is crisply sharp, and it's the guy with the black helmet. He's about number third back, and the bit that's in focus perfectly is his glove, and the other stuff is less in focus. Again, when you can see it clearly, that kind of works. I think there's been some fairly aggressive noise reduction going on here, because when you look in the grasses on the inside of the turn, they're all a bit weird and grungy and morphed away, and each of the tyres has a sort of an overly smooth with a ripply edge on it that's a little bit unnatural. So processing has just gone a couple of notches too far, and it feels to me like it's in some sort of denoise software which has started to fall to pieces, probably as you've sharpened it to try and get as many of them as sharpened, and then fixed up the noise that created it. It felt to me like a couple of steps too far. Riding the waves. So you were out there watching the boating, and it was all about action, spray, kind of, and excitement. So how you get the essence of excitement is basically waiting for a crash, like people do at motor races. And so a boat tipping up has action and excitement. These guys look like they've got it under control, as much as under control can be as you go over the top of a wave like that. But they're all holding onto the oars. They're all in step, so to speak, and they're on their way down the other side. The other thing that means we can't see any of their turmoil and excitement and expression is that we can't see their faces at all. There's just so much spray around that I can't see in the boat. So compared to other images of this style where there is a disaster that you can sense that story of action, this one is too good, basically. They're doing too well. So what can you do? My suggestion in this case is to give the whole thing some context. Where this boat fills the frame like that, we are drawn in to look at them and to find the drama from the actual, the people in the boat. If you take it back a bit, widen out a little bit, get down, crouch down so that the water's right up at your knees when you're standing there making the photograph, and then there's a big foreground of waves, and then the side, you're looking up at it and sort of across at it. Those sort of visual cues will add up to drama, even if the boat goes from sort of half the size of the frame down to a quarter or whatever, smaller part of the frame, but let the drama build up elsewhere if the actual drama with the close-in doesn't work. This is called something about Blue Lake Remnants. Somewhere. Found it. It's an interesting subject, and I enjoy that you went to the Blue Lake and you didn't look at the Blue Lake. You looked behind you, so that's cool. Well done. What you have created here is, when you look at it, sort of squint your eyes a bit and look at it, there's two blocks. You've created a split right in the middle of the frame, so the bottom half of the frame has got the silica piles, and the top part of it's got an interesting sky. The reality is, what makes this interesting is that awesome colour pairing between the yellow and the silicon and the blue. If you get in a bit closer, clamber up the side of this thing and get your wide angle lens right in close to that silica and make it a sort of a third of the frame and then the blue above it, that would work much better, particularly if you split up the balance between the two so that I could succinctly see that one is supporting the other, as opposed to this really static, drawing in the middle setting that you've done. So two things, well done for looking at it, but now explore it a bit further. Turn around, look at it, see that, photograph it, and now go to yourself, how can I make that more compelling and interesting where is the main thing in this thing? How can I explore it and find it? So you just need to keep going a couple more steps with your seeing. Moana. Simplicity. Again, kind of blocks of colour is what's happened. The orangey colour of the building and the blue from the sky is a pairing that works. But kind of, what's the story here? Were you on the train? Why did you get off? What's at Moana? Were you at Moana anyway? Did the train come past? There's a whole bunch of things when I'm looking at this I don't understand. Is it the shed that's interested you? If it's the shed that's interested you, find a detail about the shed and really explore it closely. Right up underneath the Moana, where there's that sort of runner track thing directly below it, you've got some interesting shapes there. If you zoomed in kind of close and either let us read the whole of Moana to understand where it is, or chopped it in half to make it some other sort of thing. There's things that you could do with that shed to tell us about the shed, if it's all about the shed. If it's about the relationship between the shed and the train, then the train's a bit abstract. I'm not sure. I can see that it's a train because it's on the railway lines and sort of shaped like a train, but not much else about it. Why is it there, when it's on its way, and how do you fit in it? So again, there's some construction here that works, but you still haven't gone the whole way to tell me a story that I find compelling and interesting. I think we're up to the number 3s. Early morning wander. This is the first one that I've got here, so I'm kind of hoping that from now on in they'll be in order. I'm not holding my breath though. Bright dramatic colours here, which I enjoyed a lot, and that blue gold pair. If you put blue and gold on the frame like this together, you're just about on a winner from a start. So the colour pairing works really well. It's a strong horizontal form. I enjoy that you've put the sun in that kind of dynamic position on the side of the frame, and then the person is walking across the frame towards the other side. That kind of works really well. The only downside is that it's quite punchy, and if you look in closely, well, you don't even have to look that closely, you can see it from where you are. The headlands and the trees and all those sort of things have a distinct halo all the way around them. And that halo is just kind of over-sharpening, pushed too far. It didn't need to be that punchy to be effective. So it didn't go further because of that sharpening issue, but it still isn't accepted for early morning wander. I'm hoping numbered stairs comes up. Yes, we're in order again. Numbered stairs, a great vertical form here. The lines are perfectly controlled and the whole thing just sits together really well. There's a kind of repetitive story starting at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4 as you climb up, and that kind of draws me in, and I quickly looked to realise what it was, and then I was drawn in closer to find out the similarities and differences and compared the doors. Are the doors all the same? And no, the one on number 4 is a bit different, and there's a window on number 4, and there's also something on the wall. There's a whole bunch of other interesting things that kind of flowed together really well, and the construction of the image allowed me to do that and encouraged me to do that, and that worked really well. The downside was the highlights from all the lights throughout the thing are all overblown, so you got these little blobs of white that step all the way down through the image. It might be possible in post-processing to pull the highlights back in that and merge some images to cut it down, or when you make the exposure, make it a little darker so you can open up shadows without blowing out the highlights. Again, I found on a different presentation than this, but it's still here, that each of those lights created a strong highlight, which was a little bit distracting and stopped it going a step further, but again, accepted. A night in Amsterdam. This is a kind of a different viewpoint, having this presented in black and white. We're quite used to seeing these Amsterdam buildings, which are all colourful, so it's normally a colourful presentation here. So I've enjoyed the fact that it's a little bit different. It's black and white, and that nighttime representation using black and white works to do that. I enjoyed that the bright lights are further down the canal, and so we're drawn past the first one into the picture all the way down to the far end, and it's like a road that draws me down all the way through. Again, this is a comparison to the projector, which makes things bright. It's not as strongly so. I can actually see into the shadows reasonably well, and there's a hint of cloud in the sky. When I saw this on my screen at home, that sky was really quite black, and the suggestion I was going to make was to open up the shadows a little bit. So go and have a look at back and have another look at the file that you've got and see if it looks as black as that on your computer, and then open up the highlights to make it look like it does here, because it's better here. Again, accepted, well done. Climate warriors. There's energy and passion here, and that comes through really well. The construction for this image has been done extremely well and extremely carefully. If you do an edge patrol, which I suggest everybody does at every picture they ever enter, walk around the whole edge of the frame and have a look. But just look how well this has been done. If you come up the right-hand side, starting from the bottom, we've got the girl sort of two back. We can see her whole face. And if you go up to the sign, we can see the stop the degenerative. The whole word is there, so I'm able to read it, and it works. And you go across to the other side, and the sign on the other side, which can't be presented the whole way, the words "the" and "the" are there, so you're not chopping something in half. We can't see what the frame is, but "the" makes sense. So the whole balance works. And again, the girl on the bottom left-hand side, she's carefully in frame. So I think that the cropping in this has been done really well and really carefully, and reflects exactly what we're looking for. And right in the middle, we have the different colours. So the yellow on her shirt and the green of her sign are different. So we're left in no doubt that she's the main thing in this picture. So kind of, really well technically constructed and design-wise constructed PJ image. From a PJ point of view, the only observation I was making is I think this would be an excellent picture of part of a series of 4 or 5 that tell the whole story of this event. In itself, it doesn't tell the whole who, what, when, where, why story. It tells you a snippet of it. So I think this would be better used. It's fine, it's got an accepted here, well done, but I actually think if there were 5 of these that told a different element of the whole thing, that would be a better presentation of this particular image, but it's a great image, well done. Right. Find this one. Postcard, yeah, it's a bit odd, isn't it? There's a compelling simplicity plucked from this kind of scene. The central subject, and it's a simple form right in the middle, within a square picture frame. The colours work really well. They're soft pastel-y colours, red and the soft yellow, and the pastel blue both match together well. And it's interesting if you look at the amount of colour in each of these spaces. There's quite a lot of the blue, which is the cooler going away, retarding image. There's significantly less of the yellow, but the yellow's being warmer comes forward, and that isolates it from the back. And then we just have highlights of red, which is the vibrant, dynamic, jumpy out bit. If those proportions were out in any way, any other way than it was presented, it kind of would not have worked anywhere near as well. So that's worked really well. The subject matter sitting in the middle. So this photography, him or her, I don't actually know, but they had a plethora of images that they could have presented to me here. They could have gone in and they've presented a colour image, but we could have had a black and white, 16:9 wide, dramatic, expressive image that told me something else about it or implied some other story. They could have gone through 90 degrees and looked along down that railway line as the railway line disappeared into the distance and got a different view of that Sutton shed and just seen a square-on image from Sutton. So there were a whole lot of pictures that could have been presented from something simple here, and they have chosen, he or she has chosen to present me a square crop right in the middle with colour that is a fairly literal representation. So it tends me to look at this as a literal image, And I think there's a whole bunch of more expressive stuff that was available there. So really well done, like the image, and I've given that an acceptance as well. The Ghosts of Bryce. So I don't know how many people have been to Bryce Canyon, but it's a pretty cool place. These hoodoo things are everywhere, and they go for miles. A lot of pictures you'll see from Bryce Canyon are sort of wide-angle vistas of hoodoos just everywhere. And this photographer has chosen to hone in on a really interesting hoodoo that's being brightly lit and sort of stands out from everything else. It's called Ghosts of Bryce because of, I guess, of the sort of ghostly look of that particular thing. But it's interesting that they're called hoodoos, and that's what they call them in the States, and that comes from a sort of a ghostly thing somehow. That hoodoos are kind of a ghostly form. So, I think there's a reflection of how people have seen this over the years. So that works really, really well. Again, I'm going to talk a little bit about edge patrol. If we come up this edge here, this kind of tree for me is right on the side and it's being chopped off. In a perfect world, I'd bring that crop in just a smidge to get rid of that tree, and it simplifies things down and cleans it up at the side. And up in the top in the middle, there's a couple of dips in the hoodoos over the back. If you came down by a half a notch and got rid of those, you'd clean up the edge patrol, and I think that image would jump out even better than it does, because it works really well as it is, but I think it would jump up another level if that had happened. Unpronounceable dances. I love the form and simplicity of the dances here. And again, my comments are going to relate to me seeing it on a different presentation here, because some of the things that I'm going to comment on are not as evident here. But the colour is bold and it's energetic and it reflects the dance. So we've got this interesting symmetrical pattern, we've got explosive and energetic colours, and we've got a whole bunch of people working really well together, so they're doing quite a good job from it. I don't know how this was lit, but it's been lit quite strongly from above, and that's been really well handled. You've kind of handled the exposure well to get us looking at the whole things. My suggestion was on mine, seeing all the blacks were just much blacker, and it pretty much felt like a cutout. And whereas here we can actually see the floor. I couldn't see the floor on on my screen version of it, and it made it feel a little faker than it is here. The other thing that's happened here, by being a little bit brighter, we can see into the faces of the dancers a little better than we could in the other form. So again, this is part of the projected. Maybe it's a projected image. The photographer must have known it was going to be projected like this, but I didn't see it like that, unfortunately. So that's the only suggestion I made from it, because I like the way it's been put together. But again, it gets an acceptance. Okay, Lake Camp. No, we're all over the place again now. That one. Here we go. Lake Camp Morning Reflections. A lovely form, gives an essence of stillness, and the colours are actually really beautiful. They were more saturated on my screen, but we've kind of got the saturated pinks and blues and a soft ethereal warmth to the whole thing that worked really well. I like the position of the horizon. It's not quite in the middle. It was just below the middle, when it is just below the middle. So there's a close to the middle, but distinctly away from it. And the fact that you've positioned the houses is only one we can see completely, but we still know they're there. There's little specks of white, again, right in the middle as a kind of a bullseye to the frame, but they're not obvious to hold you there. It lets us step past it. The problem is, once you see them, there's dust spot, dust spot, dust spot. There's about 10 of them. Get rid of the dust spots before you put the image in. So acceptance, but it deserves to be better if you had done some proper gardening. Incense sticks processing. We really feel like we're right there. So you've got into this place with a relatively wide angle lens and you got quite close to this guy. I'm guessing you can smell whatever that stuff is, because I have a pretty good imagination that it's not that friendly a chemical that's been dripping all over the place, so I'm glad you didn't get it on your camera. But the bottom line is you've got in really close, we can see what's going on, we can see into the guy's face really well. I love that there's just a little bit of movement in his hands, and if you look down the bottom, whatever the stuff is on the sticks is dripping off back into the bucket. That kind of worked really well. I enjoyed the soft background in behind it, so you've got the shutter speed, you've got the aperture opened really wide, probably because it's dark as well, so both of those things add together. The only thing that I would change in here, that bright blue bucket just to the left of the frame down on him is bright and vibrant and grabby, and it pulled my eye away from the subject. You could quite easily selectively detune the saturation in that bucket. The bucket, there's no problem with the bucket being there, and it's not even a problem with being blue, but it's the brightest blue in the subject by a country mile. If it softened away, it would have stopped that pulling my eye away. Again, accepted though. Get to the point. Beautiful form, simple background, great colours. I kind of like that the two greens in the background with the oblique line across the middle, and then superimposed on the front we have a pointy cactus thing and a brilliantly positioned little ladybug as it wanders up. It is slightly soft. When you look at it close, it just needs a little bit more punch and it would be perfect. So this is one where it's not horribly soft, it's not out of focus, it's not anything, but it's just not crisply focused, and it could be. And I think that would step it up even better. So still accepted, well done, half a notch of more crisp and it would have been better. New Brighton Pier in the fog. And this one, when I was just talking about making it more sharp, there's a classic example where it isn't sharp at all, and that's wonderful. The only little bit of sharpness is on the, on the closest pillar or whatever you call that thing, and then we're drawn into the fog as it just pulls us in, and off we go as it disappears. And then the more you look, the more you notice, and there's a couple of seagulls flying right in the middle if you look closely. But it requires you to look closely, and that's the joy that's achieved here. I did have a question, and it's just a perfect world situation. See that little bay or whatever they call it on the side of the pier? If there was a really dark silhouette of a person standing out there, gee, that'd be cool. Would that step it up? Would that make it something else? I'm not saying you need to go back and find them there, but just remember the perfect situation next time. The other thing I'm going to suggest you do here is there's a big chunk of negative space to the left of the pier, across here. So the picture kind of stops here, and we've still got about a quarter of the frame to go. It doesn't add anything to it. Have a play with it when you get home. Move the cropping in a little bit. Personally, I think it improves things significantly and holds you in there if you chop that negative space about in half. Just my suggestion. You don't have to do it, but try it and see what you think. But well done, that's an acceptance. Right, we're now stepping up to the high acceptance. And they're all over the show yet again. Sunrise selfie. Great colours. It's a simple colour palette that's responding really well to the sun. All the characters in this picture contribute to the story. So the characters that we've got is certainly the pier. The pier's got these sort of lines that pull us down in here. And first of all, we find that couple doing the selfie thing, which is what the picture's about, and they're darker than everybody else, so that's where we stop. And then we go a bit further past when we can see a couple of fishermen, I suspect they are, not sure what they are, but they're at the pier, at the end of the pier, looking out over the pier. And then if you come back, then the seagull comes into the game. Each of those elements gets you in this kind of rotating thing that brings you back to the couple making the selfie, which is really good. in the perfect world, again, I'm going to say that, I'd love to see a little sliver of separation between the couple doing the selfie and the bloke just to the left of them. There's an overlap there, which just, if there was a little line 4 pixels wide of light down there, it would really jump out even better. But well done, high acceptance for that. This is untroubled. It is untroubled. Kind of ICM plus here. I really enjoyed this. I'm not sure how it's done, but I'm going to surmise something. And I think there's multiple images looked in here. If you look at the runners down the bottom, there's a little bit of vertical movement, not very much, but there's a little bit. And you go all the way up to here with a little bit of vertical movement. And then we've got a band of underneath the cloud where there's quite a lot of vertical movement. So maybe there was another image with a lot of vertical movement. And then at the top, there's no vertical movement in the clouds. And then we come back to the dog who's pin sharp. So we've got a range of little, middle, none, crisp. All these things that have come together to tell a story really well. And the black and white, I think, was a great choice to use here because it just simplified those whole things and allowed me to find those little variations in the blurriness, which I enjoyed a lot. Once again, on my representation, the foreground was quite dark. Some of the edges were darker than they are here, put it that way. So if you look at the file and it feels dark, I think, well, have a remember how it looks here and see if you prefer it and tweak away to your heart's content. But the image worked really well and high accepted for untroubled. Wait for me, eyes seem stuck. I'm sorry, but this is just cheating. You cannot put cute dogs in like this and expect them not to get a high accepted. That's just not fair to everybody else. So I think we should have a rule change to disallow super cute little retrievers from here on, because he is super cute and it's awesome and it's a really well done representation of this cute puppy. It's a great portrait. And I just get a sense that he's chilled. You know, he's sticking his thing, I don't know whether he's stuck or not, but he's found a way through somewhere and he's just chilled there while you take the photo. Get on with it and then give me my dinner is probably what he's thinking. I like the simple setting. Again, it's kind of more saturated when it's a bit darker and it looks like it's sort of mossy sort of stuff all over the fence post. So I'm wondering if that little golden retriever was a green retriever after this, so I kind of hope he was, because you deserve that, putting in him somebody so cute. The only suggestion was a little more light and saturation in his eyes. It's just the way it is what it is. His eyes are kind of reset there, but I reckon you could get in with Photoshop and you could punch those up a little bit. You know, it's cheating. Maybe you've already cheated, that you can cheat on top of cheating and really, really make his eyes come to life, and that'll jump up even another step. But awesome, cute little picture and well done. Right. Autumn Delight. This is a kind of Pip Ventosa style done really, really well. I enjoyed the colour pairings that are represented here. So the dominant one is the red-green. So complementary colours of the red and green that it kind of sit and work together really well. But we also, within the tree, have some yellowing leaves, so that there's a yellow-red pairing going on there, and also a yellow-green. So combinations of both complementary and sitting together kind of colours that really punched and worked really well. And I enjoyed also that the form of the frame, that sort of, it's not quite 16 by 9, but it feels like it's wider than 3 by 2. But whatever it is, it matches the frame. You've cropped it to, or changed the picture, it doesn't matter. The two of them are made together so that one supports the other. And you know, one of the better Pip Ventosas I've seen for a long time. And well done, high accepted. Iraqi National Park after the storm. This is a really punchy black and white, dramatic lighting coming in from the top with these sort of God rays coming across down onto the thing. the form in the mountain is reflected by the cloud structure. You can see this big triangular form here is reflected in this triangular form here, and we also get the headland coming down to that side reflected by this form in the crowd. So the cloud and the mountains are working together in this picture, and that's what makes it work cohesively. I like the small, relatively small space as the foreground that leads its path. It gives us a base, but it's not a singular thing. It's kind of a band of some interesting shapes of tussock, so there's more than one thing there. That worked really well. It's right on the edge of overdone sharpening. Everywhere that you look, if you look, it's most obvious on the left-hand highland. There is just starting to get some highlight halos around the edge of that, but mostly it's because there's a white background behind it. It doesn't impact it. Like I said, it's not over sharpened, but it's right up to the edge. You might want to think about whether you've overdone it or not, but not at all, because I think the whole thing that degree of sharpening actually suits this dramatic style of picture. So again, a well-deserved high acceptance. Flaming sea foam. This is the first of the honours, and I just love this kind of abstract structure here. And the use of colour that's happened, that you've done here, works really, really well. The picture feels like it's flipped upside down, so you're taking it another level away from reality. So it's become more abstract, and then it does feel like a flame and coming up and exploding out of the whole form there. It's all about energy. And I do kind of get that sense of the energy down the bottom, the blue rising up and getting to the kind of explosive orange flame-like structure at the top. Also throughout the whole thing, there's a series of white highlights where the little bits of foam are, and they've been extremely well handled. It would have been super easy for those to be blown out and lost of detail, so you've handled it technically really, really well, and I really enjoyed this picture, and it's a well-deserved honours in my view. Everything. This is kind of an awesome moment in time, and each character here kind of has their component of story that adds to this whole thing. I can completely relate to the bloke in the middle. I distinctly remember lifting my 3-year-old daughter up and waving her in the air, and just how much fun that. And I can even remember as a kid being thrown around by my dad. So those are moments for each of those people that are just captured so superbly. And the mum right behind it as well. She's looking at her phone, but she's actually looking up at him, and there's an implied "don't you dare drop that little girl" threat, which is coming out even though she's pretending to be watching her phone. So it is a moment that I personally can relate to really strongly, and I think all of us can in somehow. So I think it's worked superbly well as a moment. I enjoyed the point of view here, which is slightly low, so we're looking up at them, we can't see their feet, which kind of works. I also enjoy the positioning within the frame. There is energy going from left to right, and there's just the right amount of negative space on the far side to allow that to happen, but not for me to want to look over there. I'm still captivated by what's happening in the middle of the frame. Absolutely love this picture, and it's, again, a well-deserved honours. And this one's the key. Flow of energy here is just fantastic. We start at the top left-hand side, and we kind of flow into the picture with this big white space around the outside, and that form draws me into the next steps. So it's just framing within framing within framing, and then in we go, and we find an explosion of red and this really cool looking art installation which just envelops everything, and we have one solitary black figure in the whole thing who's engaging with the artwork. So we're drawn in frame by frame by frame to the artwork and then to the viewer. And one of the key things about the viewer for me, she's not standing there looking at it, she's leaning forward and moving forward. So there's energy goes all the way through into that. I really loved it. The other thing that I liked about this, when you look in the metadata and it pops up on the judging thing, it's shot with an iPhone. So awesome. Best in show with an iPhone. Well done. And great set of pictures. Thank you for the privilege of looking at them.
Why do we spend money on cameras? Some different images there, so it's good. Yeah, with new people in the club.
Early morning
Good.
wander by Penny Kennedy. Numbered Stairs by Denise Fuller. A Night in Amsterdam by Pip Wright. Climate Warriors by, you probably guessed this is Neil Greenfield. Postcard from me, from Ferg. Well done, Ferg. Ghosts of Bryce by Ron Willems. Unpronounceable Dances by Alan Moore. Late Camp Morning Reflections by Nicola Jackson. Insect Stick Processing by JK. Get to the Point by Annette Preen. New Brighton Pier in the Fog by Jan Bow. High Acceptance to Sunrise Selfie by Stuart Brown. And a high acceptance for Untroubled by Anna Stevens. Wait For Me, I Seem Stuck by Alicia Hepton. Autumn Delight by Joe Curtis. Araki National Park After the Storm, a high acceptance for Jimmy Munn. Flaming Sea Foam by John Beard. And an Honours for Everything by Hesham Kim. The Gallery by Nola Sumner.
Oh, she's not here today. She lives in Perth.
What's that?
But sometimes she comes over. She's the one that's playing, but nobody made it from it. She needs to get over something. Sorry, I think she's sick. Sorry, it's bedtime. I turned it off, sorry. Ian, thank you for this critique, and a lot of it off the cuff, presumably, as well. Thanks very much for stepping in at the last minute as well. It's no easy task, I'm sure. Some lovely a lot of lovely images there, and well done to Nola, who I don't know if she's in Christchurch or whether she's in Perth at the moment. So well done, Nola. It was lovely. Would anybody like to talk briefly about their images? I can't remember which. Go back. Joe, yeah, anybody? I can't remember what the images were order-wise. Joe, do you want? John, yeah, okay. John, come and we want to know whether you made it with foam, fluff, flaming sea foam. Then you coloured it. Yeah, of course you did.
He was dead right. I turned it upside down.
Yeah, of course you did. That's great.
So this, yeah, you go. Where was I? Up in Waikuku Beach at the far end, where all the fishermen are, and that piece of rock. You know that angled piece of construction that comes out of the beach. No, all right. Anyway, so I was walking on the beach, and this was the sea foam was coming in. It was swirling around and doing quite dynamic things. So I grabbed a few shots. I'm looking down on top of it. There, so I'm just kind of like straddled over the sea foam, looking down on the thing, with a fairly wide angle lens. No, I avoided the feet. And the sea foam, I was just saying to Joe, it's it's not the most interesting of subjects because it's just this kind of creamy, murky kind of looking thing. Although there were some quite big highlights in there with the whites, as Ian pointed out. So got it home with a set of these and just had a play in Photoshop with blending some colours in there, and had this vision of, thought it initially like a phoenix rising up from below, but then I played with the blues and the greens, and I thought it was more like lava as well. So anyway, so have a play, take a boring picture and then play with it and go creative. I think that's the key. Improve your Photoshop skills along the way.
It's lovely. You could definitely sort of see that in a foyer somewhere, an office block or something where you walk in and try and sell it. Yeah, I like it. It looks like feathers as well. So, yeah. Sorry, I don't know. I can't remember what Janine's not here, unfortunately. Joe, a quick tips on Pep Ventosa. You've got to find the right tree, presumably. Yes.
Thank you. This was taken about 4 years ago. There's about 16 shots there, and you can see beyond the tree is a lake. So I couldn't get all the way around it. So if you hadn't tried the Pep Ventosa or in the round images, have a go at it. It's fun to do because you never know what you're going to get until you put them all together. So I walked around as much as I could, but of course what struck me to start with was the colour. And I'd taken my mum for a walk in Tauranga, in one of the gardens in Tauranga, and we both she sat in the wheelchair while I walked around and made all these images, and she was surprised, what I'd made when I put them all together and showed her. And she said, "Oh, so that's what you could see." And I could kind of see it before I made it, but you never really know, do you, what you're going to get. And like you said, Ian, the complementary colours, that really struck me. Yeah. So I'm glad you liked that one. Thank you.
It's beautiful. I've seen you do another one as well. You've got a white one. So do you do your 1 metre around the tree?
With a sort of a rhythm.
Yes, with a rhythm go. 2 steps shot. 2 step shot. Do you like to blend in camera or do it yourself?
No, I use Photoshop. That's one of the Photoshop
Yeah.
skills I do know.
Yeah, okay. No, I was just curious, because some people actually do it themselves and paint and brush things in and out so that you don't have too many trunks. But anyway, beautiful. Do we have, I know it's getting, should we, Anna. Yes, sorry. Because that's beautiful. Gorgeous light.
Yes, Ian was 100% right. This is actually a combination of few photos? Yeah. And it was experiment from start to the end, because that was in New Brighton, new camera. I was trying settings, and I had the same frame, so I put the camera on the fence, and I was using different settings to test. and then I took it in post-production, and I particularly liked 2 photos. One was long exposure, one was intentional camera movement, and one was actually quite underexposed. And then I combined them, and then I played with blending modes and masking. Yeah. So I was very moody, obviously, that day, because it turned out to be quite moody. Yeah.
Sorry, thank you for sharing. That's, I think we need to get more creative, clearly. So anybody else like to talk, or shall we wrap it up? It's 9:20. Yep, bedtime. Okay, let me see if I've got more information here. No, I think that's it. So I'd just like to run through all the thank yous. I'm not sure who opened tonight. Maybe it was Dennis and Adrienne. And closing tonight will be Dennis and Adrienne, I assume. John, were you on meet and greet? No, yes, thank you. Tim, who's gone, and Gordon, who's vanished at the back. There he is, popped up. Thank you very much for doing all the sound. And Alistair on the projector. And supper, I think. I don't know if John Casey's here, but I think it was Dennis again. So thank you, Dennis. And also Ian, thank you for judging again tonight. I'll say good night, drive home safely, and we'll see you next week.